very fact that my good friend can mention the civil society, the religious leaders have come very strongly to critique, that is democracy. Democracy is not just about parliament. And I understand what he's saying, because I do agree that it is quite embarrassing for parliamentarians to go for training on a bill that they passed themselves. I think all of them should have handed in the resignation letters that day, especially all of those who had voted yes. So that point is home. 2025 moving forward, what do we want to see? Number one, I agree with Arnold. Kenya needs to talk and needs to have a serious conversation about where we want to go. And that brings me back to the point about the positive tension. I want 2025 to be another year where the government and the people come together to pull on the same side to make sure things are better, to make sure SHA is working. I want another runway at the airport. I want the potholes in Nairobi fixed. I want to be able to afford things when I go to the supermarket. I want not to be embarrassed as a father when I tell my kids we can't afford these things. So these things are universal. I think even the president's own children desire these things, and therefore it is not a partisan statement when we say that what we want together as a country is the people are saying we want a better country. The government is saying it's delivering a better country. So we agree on what we want. Now, can that movement actually be actualized in our pockets, in our governance, and in the accounting systems that keep our government in check?
Okay. Compounding closing remarks, very briefly, Elizabeth.
So I just needed to say this, that there's a notion, and I will call it actually unapologetically, I will call it a very reductionist notion, that Parliament does not know what it's doing. Parliament actually has got some of the best minds when it comes to the technical people. Number one, the Parliamentary Budget Office, the PBO, quite a competent department. If you look at their research department, I do not think that there is quite a place where you get a glut of people who can actually do proper policy and legislative research. So Parliament is also making decisions based on information. And a lot of times, by the way, it's actually scientific information. The problem with scientific information is that sometimes it's not popular. So you're going to get people who will actually argue with what is quite, let me call it populist lines. And those are very easy, especially when you get out there. And that is why for us, I think it's time we invited people to town halls, yes, to talk to each other, because now from where Kenya is, you cannot talk policy and politics in political rallies. It's one way, it's no longer making sense. That can only polarize situations. You cannot have the whole country in a boardroom, but then at least we can actually have proper structured policy and sometimes political conversations with depth in town halls. Okay. So I just needed to say that in defense of Parliament, there is this notion that somehow Parliament is made up of people who do not know what they are doing. Somehow, people, almost 350 for the National Assembly, 349 of them, I think 2 of them are now away. Let's talk about just 347 of them. Plus the Speaker, you can actually talk about 348.